The morning started like any other, warm sunlight slipping through the curtains and settling softly across the living room floor. But no one in the house knew that this ordinary day would turn into something unforgettable, something that would later leave everyone wondering how a single moment between a toddler and her golden retriever could change everything. It began with a tiny voice, a pair of chubby hands on her hips, and a warning that sounded more adorable than serious. The toddler stood in front of her big fluffy golden retriever as if she was talking to someone who completely understood her every word. And somehow, he did. Her name was Mila, barely 3 years old, full of curiosity, full of big feelings she still didn't know how to express. The golden retriever was Max, the kind of dog that made strangers smile just by wagging his tail. Max had been part of the family long before Mila learned to walk. He watched her grow, guarded her like a little shadow, and acted more patient with her than most humans could ever be. But today, for some reason no one understood yet, Mila walked up to Max with a look on her face that didn't match her usual giggles. Max had been restless since the night before. He followed Mila everywhere, staying so close that her parents joked he was becoming her furry bodyguard. But Mila didn't find it funny that morning. She tried to play with her toys, but Max kept interrupting her, gently nudging her arm or blocking her path as if he wanted to tell her something. She tried to draw pictures, and he lay right on top of her paper. She tried to carry her cup of juice, and he stood so close she almost stumbled. It was cute at first, but soon Mila's patience reached its tiny limit. That's when she pointed her little finger at Max and said, in her most serious toddler voice, "Max, last time. Stop it." The whole family laughed when they heard her tiny warning. But Max didn't back away. He didn't give Mila space. He just stared at her with those deep golden eyes that seemed filled with worry. It wasn't the look of a dog being stubborn. It was something else, something that would make sense only later. Her parents assumed Max was just being playful. Golden retrievers were known for sticking close to the people they loved, especially kids. They adored being part of every moment. But the way Max behaved that morning didn't feel like play. It felt like purpose. He wasn't wagging his tail. He wasn't bouncing around. He was focused on Mila, every movement slow and careful, as if he was watching for something the rest of them couldn't see. Even Mila, in her little world of crayons and stuffed animals, sensed something different. She didn't know how to describe it. She didn't have the words. So instead, she reacted the only way a toddler could, by warning Max again. But the second time, her voice was softer, unsure. Almost like, even though she couldn't fully understand what was going on, she trusted him more than she admitted. Her parents didn't think much of it. They were busy with their morning routine, packing lunches, answering phone calls, checking emails. The usual rush. But as the house moved through its typical noise and motion, Max remained strangely still, tracking Mila with a seriousness that didn't match his personality. It was like he knew something was coming. Like he felt something they didn't. The tension in the room grew without anyone really noticing. Dogs had instincts humans sometimes forgot to pay attention to. They smelled danger before it appeared. They sensed emotions before they were spoken. They picked up on tiny details people missed. And Max, gentle, loving Max, seemed to be sensing something that made him break his usual calm nature. Mila wandered around the living room as toddlers do, touching everything, humming to herself, dropping toys and picking them up again. But Max never let her move far from him. Every time she tried, he gently herded her back, nudging her closer to the center of the room. Mila tried to stop him with another warning, "Max. I said stop it. Last time." She looked frustrated, but Max didn't back away. Not even a step. Her father finally looked up, noticing the way Max's body was positioned, stiff, alert, protective. But before he could say anything, Mila toddled toward the hallway, and Max instantly rushed in front of her, blocking her path so suddenly that she bumped gently into his fur. She blinked, confused. "Mama." Max not listening, she complained. But still, Max didn't move. It wasn't normal behavior. Not for him. Not for a golden retriever who usually aimed to please. And certainly not for a dog who adored Mila so much he obeyed her more than he obeyed the adults. Her mother frowned, finally sensing that something wasn't right. "Max? What's going on, boy?" she asked. But Max didn't shift his eyes away from Mila. His tail was down, not in fear, but in focus. It was like he was preparing himself for whatever he felt coming. Mila reached out her hand, trying to push Max aside. "Move, Max. I want to go." Her voice was softer this time, less annoyed and more confused. Something in Max's expression made her pause. He didn't growl. He didn't bark. He didn't show any sign of aggression. He just stood there, gentle, strong, determined, like he was making a choice. A choice nobody expected. Her father stepped forward, about to guide Max away, but the dog suddenly turned his head, not toward Mila, not toward her parents, but toward the hallway she had been walking toward. His ears lifted. His eyes widened. His entire body leaned forward in a way that made the hair on her mother's arm stand. Something was there. Something Max sensed long before any of them did. And in the silent seconds that followed, Mila looked up at Max with big, uncertain eyes, and Max finally made his move. What he did next shocked everyone, because none of them saw it coming. And that moment was only the beginning. Max stepped forward with a careful but urgent motion, placing himself once again between Mila and the hallway. His body stayed low, steady, almost as if he was bracing for something none of them could see. Mila's parents exchanged a quick glance, one of those silent looks that said, "Something isn't right." Even though they didn't know what Max was sensing, they could feel the shift in the air. It was the kind of shift that made the room feel too quiet, too still. Mila, confused but suddenly calmer, held onto Max's fur like she always did when she wasn't sure about something. Her tiny fingers tightened around him as she peered past his shoulder toward the dim hallway. It wasn't dark or scary, just a normal hallway with family photos and a few toys scattered near the door. But the way Max stared into it made it feel different, almost like it was hiding something. Her mother slowly stepped closer, placing a hand on Mila's back. "Sweetie, stay with Max," she whispered. She didn't know why she said it, she just felt like it was the right thing to do. Max's protective stance made her uneasy, and she didn't want Mila anywhere else except right beside him. Mila's father took another step toward the hallway, but Max let out a soft, low whine, not a warning sound, just a sound that said he didn't want anyone to go. It was the first noise he made all morning, and it only deepened the mystery. Max wasn't the kind of dog who got nervous without reason. He was always easygoing, always calm around new people and new situations. But today, something had him on edge. The house itself had been normal that morning. No strange sounds. No open windows. No unfamiliar scents. Nothing that would explain why Max was behaving in such a strange, tense way. Yet the golden retriever kept staring ahead, like he was waiting for something to appear or something to change. Mila's mother tried to convince herself that Max was being overly protective, that maybe he smelled a squirrel outside or heard a car passing by. But that didn't fit. Max had never reacted like this before, not even during thunderstorms or fireworks. Mila tugged softly on Max's ear, her little voice barely above a whisper. "Max, why you doing that?" He didn't turn his head. He didn't blink. He just kept looking forward. Her father crouched down to Max's level, trying to understand him better. "Buddy, what's wrong?" he asked quietly, reaching out a hand. Max gently nudged the hand away, not out of aggression, but because he didn't want to break his focus. Mila's father slowly stood up again, feeling the knot of concern tighten in his stomach. It was clear Max wasn't behaving like himself. As the tension lingered in the air, the family tried to go back to their morning routine. It wasn't easy. Every small noise, a creak from the floor, a distant car door closing, the hum of the fridge, made Max tense even more. Mila's parents noticed his muscles stiffen each time, like he was expecting something. Mila stayed close to him now, no longer trying to push him away. Toddlers had a way of sensing emotions even when they didn't fully understand them. She felt Max's worry, and it made her hold on to him a little tighter. Her mother called her sister just to talk, hoping a normal conversation would ease her nerves. But as she spoke, Max suddenly shifted again, turning his head sharply toward the hallway. He stood tall, ears up, body leaning forward. Mila followed his gaze with wide eyes. Her mother froze mid-sentence. On the other end of the call, her sister asked, "Are you okay?" But she barely heard her. The change in Max's posture was enough to silence everyone. "Something's off," Mila's father muttered again, almost to himself. The house wasn't old. They had lived there long enough to know every sound it made. They had never experienced anything strange or unexplained. It was just a normal home in a quiet neighborhood, the kind where golden retrievers played in the yard and toddlers drew on the walls when no one was looking. Nothing about it was supposed to feel threatening. Still, Max wouldn't move from his spot. Mila eventually sat down beside him, her legs crossed, holding her favorite stuffed bunny. She didn't take her eyes off the hallway either. It was the first time that morning she had stopped moving. Max seemed to relax slightly when Mila stayed close, but his focus remained sharp. He wasn't guarding the hallway because he was scared, he was guarding it because he felt he had to. Her father decided to check every room in the house just to be safe. He walked slowly, opening doors, peeking into corners, listening for unusual sounds. But everything was normal. No broken windows. No misplaced items. Nothing that would make a dog behave this way. When he came back to the living room, he shook his head. "Nothing," he said quietly. "Everything looks fine." But Max didn't believe that. And Mila, in her own innocent way, didn't believe it either. The morning stretched on, but time felt strange, longer somehow. Max's behavior didn't improve. If anything, his tension grew stronger. He paced a little now, moving from one side of the hallway entrance to the other, always keeping his body low and protective. Mila stayed on the floor, watching him with big, curious eyes. She didn't ask questions anymore. She just stayed close. As the day continued, new details began to stand out. Max refused to eat his breakfast, something he never skipped. He didn't chase his ball when Mila rolled it across the floor. He didn't bring his leash to the door like he usually did around the same time. His behavior stayed fixed on one thing, keeping Mila close and guarding that hallway. A few neighbors stopped by during the day, one dropping off a package, another asking a quick question about weekend plans. Max, usually eager to greet anyone warmly, barely acknowledged them. He didn't wag his tail or trot to the door. He just kept returning to the same spot, watching, waiting. Mila's mother tried to distract him. She gently brushed his fur, hoping it would calm him down. She even tried taking him outside for a few minutes, but he refused to go. He tugged against the leash, trying to get back inside, making it clear he didn't want to leave the house. Or maybe, he didn't want to leave Mila unprotected. The hours passed slowly, each moment adding more confusion to the already tense atmosphere. Nothing had happened yet, no noise, no sudden movement, no sign of danger. But Max behaved like something was approaching, something only he could feel. Dogs had instincts stronger than most people realized. It wasn't uncommon for them to sense things humans couldn't. Changes in weather. Emotional tension. Even slight vibrations or distant sounds. But this was different. This wasn't a storm coming. This wasn't someone walking by the house. This wasn't a random distraction. It was something else. And even though Mila's parents tried to convince themselves that Max was just having an off day, they couldn't ignore the uneasy feeling that grew with each passing hour. Every time they looked at him, they felt the same chill of uncertainty, the kind that settled in the chest and refused to leave. By late afternoon, the entire house felt heavy with suspense. Mila leaned against Max's side, tired from the long day. Max didn't rest. Not even for a moment. His eyes stayed locked on the hallway, breathing deep, steady, alert. And then, something finally changed. A faint sound. so soft that Mila's parents barely heard it. But Max did. His head snapped up. His ears perked. His body tensed harder than it had all day. Max's sudden reaction hit the room like a silent alarm. He stood so still that even Mila didn't dare move. His body leaned forward, nose slightly lifted as if he was trying to catch a scent drifting through the hallway. Whatever he sensed, it wasn't something the others could pick up. Not a smell they recognized, not a sound they heard. But Max knew. And the more he focused, the more obvious it became that this wasn't just him being protective. Something deeper was happening, something that pulled the entire family into a quiet, growing tension. Mila's mother slowly lowered her mug onto the counter, afraid that even the soft clink might disturb whatever Max was tracking. Her father lowered his voice, almost whispering. "Do you hear anything?" he asked softly. She shook her head. She didn't hear anything odd. The house was too normal, too still. But Max stayed frozen, like the world around them was shifting and he was the only one who could feel the change. Then the sound came again. Faint. A soft something. Not a thud, not a creak, just a small disturbance, like fabric brushing against something. Mila didn't notice it. Her parents barely did. But Max reacted instantly, taking another step forward and blocking Mila even more completely. Her mother moved closer to Max, her heartbeat picking up. "What is it, boy?" she whispered. Max didn't look at her. His eyes stayed locked on the same darkened corner of the hallway. It wasn't a dangerous look. It was a focused, determined look, like he was preparing himself. Mila reached out and grabbed Max's tail gently, the way she always did when she was nervous. He didn't move. His muscles stayed tight. The soft sound came once more. This time her father heard it clearly, a strange shuffle, too light to be footsteps but too intentional to be random. He stepped in front of his wife, trying to see more clearly, but the hallway wasn't giving anything away. The tension rose again, thick and heavy, but still nothing revealed itself. Hours slipped by without answers. Max refused to leave the hallway entrance. Mila refused to leave Max. Her parents moved around the house carefully, checking windows and doors, calling Max's name, trying to distract him. But nothing worked. Whatever he sensed didn't go away, it lingered, quiet and invisible, but strong enough to keep Max wired like a tightened spring. To ease Mila's nerves, her mother tried turning on her favorite cartoon. Mila usually danced, laughed, or shouted at the screen, but today she sat quietly with Max, her head resting against his side. Max didn't relax, not even then. Every now and then, he lifted his head, ears twitching toward the hallway, listening for something only he understood. Her parents decided to call a vet friend, asking if dogs sometimes acted strangely without a real reason. The vet suggested things like anxiety, unfamiliar scents, maybe even a wild animal outside. But when they described Max's behavior in detail, the vet paused. "If he's guarding her that intensely," she said slowly, "he might be sensing something subtle, something you can't see yet." That didn't help their nerves. As the afternoon moved into early evening, the sunlight dimmed, and long shadows stretched across the floor. The hallway looked darker than before, almost inviting and unsettling at the same time. Max continued to stare, his breathing deep and steady. Meanwhile, a different tension started to grow in the house, a quiet worry that maybe the hallway wasn't the only mystery. Maybe Max was reacting to something connected to Mila. Her parents whispered about it when she wasn't looking. They wondered if she wasn't feeling well, if something was changing that they hadn't noticed. Kids went through phases. Dogs sometimes picked up on emotional shifts. But Max wasn't acting like he sensed a mood. He was acting like he sensed something approaching. A subtle subplot began forming in her mother's mind, one she didn't want to admit. For the past week, Mila had been waking up at night crying softly. She didn't say why. She would just cling to her mother for a few minutes and fall back asleep. They assumed it was normal toddler dreams, but now, with Max's strange behavior, the memory clung heavier. Even Mila's father began thinking about the old stories people told about golden retrievers sensing things in children, things like medical changes, emotional distress, or hidden risks in the environment. He wasn't superstitious, but the thought crossed his mind anyway, adding a new layer to their growing unease. Through all of this, Mila stayed surprisingly calm. She seemed to trust Max more than the adults did. Every time her parents tried to move her away from him, she shook her head and whispered, "Max needs me." The innocence in her voice mixed strangely with the seriousness of the moment. By dinner time, the house had taken on an unsettling quietness. Even the usual neighborhood sounds felt distant. Max's refusal to leave the hallway made every shadow feel sharper, every breeze through the window seemed suspicious. Her mother cooked dinner with one eye constantly glancing toward the hallway. Her father checked outside again and again, walking around the house trying to find a cause for Max's behavior. But there were no animals, no strange neighbors, no unusual vehicles, nothing. Inside, though, the mystery kept growing. When Mila's mother tried to coax Max into eating, he only sniffed the bowl and walked away. He returned to his guard position, nudging Mila gently until she sat near him again. She ate her food beside him on the floor, like she felt safer that way. And then, when the house fell into its evening stillness, something new happened. Max suddenly turned his head, not toward the hallway this time, but toward the front door. His entire body shifted direction. His ears perked. His eyes narrowed. It was the same alertness, but now pointed somewhere completely different. Mila's parents tensed immediately. "Now what?" her father whispered, almost annoyed at the fear creeping into his voice. Mila crawled closer to Max, gently wrapping her arms around his neck. Max stayed focused on the door. The hallway was forgotten, for the moment. Then the noise returned. Not from the hallway this time. From outside. A gentle tap. Then another. Her father went to the window slowly, peeking outside with cautious movements. But no one was there. The street looked peaceful. A dog barked in the distance. A car drove by. Everything seemed normal. But Max didn't think so. He moved closer to Mila now, pushing her behind him again. It was the second time that day he had done that, and each time, the tension in the room doubled. Then the tap came again. This time a bit louder. Mila's mother stepped back, clutching the edge of the table. "Someone's at the door," she whispered, but she didn't believe it. The taps were too soft, too irregular, almost hesitant. Max growled, not loud, not aggressive, just enough to warn the unseen thing that he knew it was there. Her father reached for the doorknob. Max barked, a sharp, urgent bark that made everyone jump. Her father froze. Mila clung to Max, eyes wide but trusting. Something outside the door shifted again, soft, slow, deliberate. Max held his ground. But nothing came through the door. Nothing appeared in the window. Nothing revealed itself. Yet something was definitely there. The mystery deepened, wrapping the house in an unsettling silence, as if holding its breath for what would happen next. Max's bark echoed through the living room, sharp enough to stop every movement. Even the air felt like it froze. Mila squeezed her arms around Max's neck, her little chin resting on his fur. Her wide eyes didn't blink. She trusted him completely, but she could feel the tension running through his body like a quiet vibration. Whatever he sensed near the door wasn't simple curiosity anymore. It felt heavier, closer, real. Her father took his hand off the doorknob slowly, like he was worried even the smallest sound might set something off. The tapping stopped the moment Max barked, but that didn't make anyone relax. If anything, the silence made it worse. A silence that made the whole house feel like it was waiting. Mila's mother shook her head slightly. "Maybe it's just the wind," she whispered, but even she didn't believe that. The weather was calm. No strong breeze, no branches scraping the house. This was something else, something intentional. Max didn't break his stance. He stood firm, blocking Mila with his body. His chest rose slowly, deeply, like he was trying to keep himself controlled. His tail stayed low, not tucked in fear, but lowered in pure concentration. He shifted his weight back just enough to touch Mila, reassuring her without even looking at her. Then, the tap came again. This time, it wasn't a tap. It was a soft, dragging sound, barely noticeable, but long enough to send chills down her mother's arms. The sound seemed to move from the front door across the porch, like someone, or something, was slowly brushing against the surface. Max stepped forward again, placing himself between the family and the door. His ears stayed pinned forward, eyes locked, ready. Her father swallowed hard and whispered, "I'm going to check outside." But Max growled. A deeper sound now. Not aggressive. Protective. A warning. Mila's father froze again. Max rarely growled, and when he did, it was never without good reason. Everyone felt it. The room grew tighter, heavier, as if the walls themselves were listening. Her mother shook her head firmly this time. "Don't open the door," she whispered. "Please, not yet." Her father nodded, backing away slowly. The dragging sound faded again. Mila's small voice cut through the silence. "Max scared?" she whispered. Max finally looked at her, his eyes soft for one moment, as if telling her she was safe with him. Then he turned back to the door, posture stiffening even more. Her parents didn't know what to do now. They didn't want to scare Mila further, but they also couldn't ignore Max's instincts. For hours he had warned them something wasn't right, first in the hallway, now at the door. It was like whatever he sensed was moving around the house, shifting its presence, getting closer. The uncertainty grew until it filled every corner of the room. Outside, a faint crunch of gravel sounded. Not heavy footsteps, but slight, almost delicate pressure, like someone was trying not to be heard. Max's head snapped in the direction of the front window. His ears twitched sharply. His entire body leaned forward again. Mila pressed against his side, whispering, "It's okay, Max," but even her soft voice trembled. Her father peered through the window again, but there was nothing obvious. The yard looked normal. The street lights flickered on one by one. A neighbor's dog barked far away. But here, near their own house, the quiet felt dangerous. Then something happened that made the tension spike even higher. Max slowly shifted his gaze, not toward the door, not toward the hallway, but toward the back of the house. His body rotated, slow and deliberate. Mila followed him with her eyes, confused. Her mother's breath caught. "Now the back," her father whispered. Max didn't leave Mila's side. He nudged her toward her mother, guiding her backward until she was safely held in her mother's arms. Only then did he take a few steps toward the kitchen, his paws silent on the floor. His eyes stayed fixed on the sliding glass door at the back of the house. Her father felt his stomach twist. "Did someone go around the house?" he murmured. The thought felt too real. Max stood in the middle of the kitchen, muscles tight, tail still, ears locked on the backyard. The family followed slowly, afraid to get too close, afraid not to. Outside, the backyard looked peaceful. The grass swayed slightly. A few fireflies blinked near the fence. The sky was settling into twilight. But Max saw something they didn't. Something out there held his focus. Constant. Unblinking. The sliding door was locked, but that didn't stop the unease from growing. A sudden thump came from the side of the house, small, quick, but enough to make Mila bury her face into her mother's shoulder. Her father stepped back instinctively. Max didn't flinch. He moved forward one more step, positioning himself directly between the noise and his family. The thump came again. 3 seconds apart. Soft. Too soft for anything obvious. But sharp enough for Max to react each time. Her father moved slowly toward the kitchen window. He lifted the curtain just a little, just enough to peek outside. His eyes scanned the yard, trying to understand what Max saw, but again, nothing stood out. He exhaled shakily. "I don't see anything." Max growled again, deeper this time, rumbling from his chest. Mila whispered, "Max knows," holding her mother tightly. The words hung in the room like truth. Because Max did know. And whatever he sensed wasn't leaving. Her mother turned toward the living room again, checking the front door as if expecting something to appear there too. The sound from the side of the house stopped suddenly, leaving them in an eerie stillness that felt too deliberate. Max's breathing quickened slightly, though he stayed composed. His eyes darted between the sliding door and the hallway again, as if he was trying to track more than one thing at once. It felt like the entire house was surrounded by an invisible presence, one that moved silently, unpredictably, getting closer each time Max reacted. Her father tried to stay calm for Mila, but even he felt the dread. "Should we call someone?" he whispered. Her mother nodded quickly. "Yes, maybe." But before she could reach for her phone, Max barked again, this time louder, sharper, more urgent than before. He ran forward 2 steps, skidding to a stop near the hallway entrance, lowering his body like he was preparing for something to come around the corner. Mila gasped. Her mother clutched her tightly. Her father stepped back again. The house went silent. Completely silent. Then, another sound. Not from the door. Not from the backyard. Not from outside at all. It came from inside the hallway. A slow, unmistakable shift. Something, or someone, was there. Max let out a low, trembling growl, planting himself firmly at the hallway entrance. His body blocked the family. His eyes narrowed with intense focus, muscles coiled like a spring ready to explode. The entire house held its breath. Something was just beyond the darkness. And Max was ready for it. But what stepped, or moved, in that hallway? Was something none of them were prepared for. Max stood braced at the entrance of the hallway, every muscle in his body tight, every instinct burning through him. The house seemed to shrink around the family as they watched him stare into the darkness, waiting for whatever had made that quiet, unmistakable sound. Mila clutched her mother's shirt with tiny fingers, her breath short and quick. Her father didn't even attempt to move closer this time. He understood now, Max wasn't reacting to shadows or random noises. He was responding to something real. For a long moment, nothing happened. The hallway stayed still, silent, almost frozen. The kind of silence that felt too heavy to be natural. Max didn't blink. His growl stayed low, vibrating softly in his chest, like a warning he was holding back. Then, another sound came. Not loud. Not sharp. Just a soft, almost hesitant shift, like fabric brushing against a wall, or something tiny moving out of sight. It wasn't enough to identify, but it was enough to confirm that whatever was there wasn't an object settling. It was something alive. Her father reached for the light switch, thinking maybe the hallway had just been too dark, maybe the shadows were playing tricks. But before his hand touched the switch, Max snapped his head toward him and barked, a sharp, urgent sound that made her father freeze mid-motion. "Okay. Okay," he whispered, pulling his hand away slowly. If Max didn't want the light turned on, there had to be a reason. The tension thickened. But just when everyone expected something to appear from the hallway, something unexpected happened, something none of them were prepared for. The lights flickered. Only for a second. But it was enough. The tiny flicker washed the hallway in a strange, broken glow. Enough to reveal the edge of something at the far end. A shape. Not a person. Not an animal. Something small. Unclear. But definitely there. Mila's mother gasped softly, covering her mouth. Her father stepped backward again, eyes wide, trying to make sense of what he thought he saw. Max didn't move. He stared harder, lowering himself as if he was preparing for a sudden rush forward, or a sudden attack. His fur stood up along his spine. But just as quickly as the shape appeared, the light steadied, and whatever they saw slipped back into darkness, gone. Her father whispered, "Did you see that?" Her mother nodded slowly. "Something, small." "Too small to be," he began. But then another sound came. Not from the hallway. From the attic above. A slow, dragging scrape. All three of them jerked their heads upward. The scraping paused, then continued with a soft rhythm, like something crawling, or shifting, or dragging itself slowly across the floorboards overhead. Mila froze. Her little hand slid back toward Max, finding his fur again. This was the second twist they never expected. The noises weren't coming from just one direction anymore. Whatever Max had sensed earlier, whatever was moving around the house, wasn't confined to a single spot. It was moving. Changing locations. Staying unpredictable. Her father whispered, "How is it upstairs?" "We didn't hear the stairs. Nobody went up there." Mila's mother's voice shook. "Maybe it was always up there." The idea left a cold chill down everyone's spine. Max barked again, this time pointing upward. A deep, powerful bark that echoed through the house, sounding like he was calling out the presence directly. Then the attic sounded again, this time louder. Something shifted quickly, too quick for an object rolling. Almost like footsteps. Light, uneven footsteps. Her father nearly stepped forward to run, but Max blocked him, nudging him back with force. Max pushed him with such determined strength that her father knew instantly, "Do not go closer." Not now. Max was protecting them from something upstairs too. Mila's mother whispered, "What do we do?" "We can't check the attic." "Not with, whatever that is." Mila looked between her parents, confused, scared, and curious all at once. "Max sees it," she said softly. The words hit harder than they should have. Because she was right. Max wasn't confused. He wasn't acting randomly. He was tracking it, whatever it was, from the hallway, to the door, to the backyard, and now overhead. And then something made the tension explode even more. The hallway shifted again. It wasn't a sound this time. It was the air. Cold. A sudden breath of cool air slipped through the hallway, drifting into the living room. It brushed against their skin, soft but icy, making the hairs on everyone's arms stand up. There was no open window. No draft. No vent blowing. Yet the cold air moved through the house like something had just passed by. Max whipped his head back toward the hallway again. His barking stopped. His breathing quickened. He positioned himself squarely between the hallway and Mila, lowering himself like he was expecting something to rush out. Her father felt the cold too and stepped back again, instinctively placing himself between his wife and the front door. But the cold wasn't the worst part. The lights flickered again, just once. And in that split second of broken light, they all saw it. A new shape. Not at the end of the hallway this time. Closer. Much closer. Something small. Something low to the ground. Something that moved. Mila gasped. Her mother pulled her back instinctively. Her father froze. And Max launched forward one step, barking so loudly the windows trembled. Then it disappeared again, swallowed by the darkness before anyone could identify what it was. The attic went silent. The backyard went silent. The whole world seemed to pause. And then, another sound. From the hallway. A soft, high-pitched whimper. Not from Mila. Not from Max. Something else. Something that had been hiding. Something that had been moving around the house silently. Something that had finally decided to reveal itself, but only in the smallest, most unsettling way possible. Max growled, stepping forward again, ready. But what stepped out, or tried to step out, from the darkness, was something none of them had expected. Not even Max. And for the first time since the entire ordeal began, he hesitated. Max's sudden hesitation froze the entire room. It wasn't fear, Max didn't fear easily. It was recognition. Something in the darkness made him pause, even as every instinct told him to protect his family. The hallway felt tighter now, like the shadows were holding their breath. Then the shape finally moved forward. Not fast. Not aggressive. Just slow, uncertain, almost trembling. As it reached the soft spill of light from the living room, the outline sharpened, and Mila whispered, "It's a puppy." A tiny, shaking puppy stepped out from the darkness, its fur messy, its ribs a little visible, its eyes wide with fear. It looked exhausted, scared, like it had been wandering the house trying to find a safe place. Mila's mother exhaled sharply, her hand flying to her chest. "Is that what Max has been sensing, all this time?" her father whispered. The puppy whimpered again, trying to take another step but stumbling. Max immediately walked forward with slow, steady movements. Not barking. Not growling. Just approaching like he understood everything. The puppy lowered its head, expecting danger. But Max sniffed it gently, then nudged it softly with his nose, like he was telling the family, "This is what I've been protecting you from." Not a threat, something that needed help. Mila knelt down carefully despite her parents' hesitation. The puppy looked at her with terrified eyes, frozen in place. Mila reached out her tiny hand, barely touching its nose. The puppy leaned forward just a little, as if it finally realized it wasn't in danger anymore. Her father let out a shaky laugh. "We were scared out of our minds, because a puppy walked into our house." But before anyone could relax too much, the attic suddenly thumped again, loud enough to silence every smile that had started forming. Her mother stiffened. "Wait, if the puppy is here, then what was upstairs?" They all looked up at the ceiling. Max's ears shot up too. He had no hesitation now. Whatever was in the attic was something else entirely. Her father, fed up with fear and guessing, grabbed a flashlight and slowly moved toward the attic ladder. "I'm going to check." "Max, stay with Mila." But Max didn't stay. He rushed ahead, straight to the attic ladder, and positioned himself like a soldier ready to go first. Her father climbed up, Max right behind him. The beam of the flashlight sliced through the attic's darkness, dust and old boxes catching its glow. The sound that had terrified them earlier had stopped. Everything looked still. Then the beam landed on something odd near the far corner. Her father narrowed his eyes. A loose wooden panel, shifted just slightly. He approached slowly, Max staying inches from his leg. When he pulled the panel aside, a flutter of cold air swept through. And then he found it. Not an animal. Not a person. A small, broken drone. Its propellers cracked, its little LED blinking weakly. The noise it made earlier, those light footsteps and dragging sounds, must have come from it trying to move or stabilize itself whenever the battery jolted awake. Her father exhaled with disbelief. A drone? That's what was up here. As he inspected it, a small sticker on the side caught his eye, one from a neighborhood kid known for flying gadgets around the block. It had probably crashed through an open vent earlier in the evening without anyone noticing. He let out a nervous laugh, relieved. Max saved us from a malfunctioning drone. But when he turned, Max wasn't looking at the drone anymore. He was staring down the attic ladder, toward the living room below. Her father followed his gaze, suddenly tense again. Downstairs, Mila stood holding the tiny puppy, smiling softly. But behind her, the hallway light flickered once more. Just once. Enough to send a quick shadow sliding across the floor, too fast, too thin, too deliberate to be the puppy or the drone. Her father called out, "Mila, stay with the puppy. Don't move." She looked back, confused. "Daddy? What's wrong?" The hallway grew quiet again, still and cold like before. The family stared at the darkness, waiting for anything to move, for any sound to explain what they had just seen. But nothing happened. Not a sound. Not a shift. Not even the flicker of light. As if whatever passed through the hallway was already gone. Her father glanced at Max, hoping for reassurance. But Max didn't relax. He stayed locked on the hallway, tail stiff, body tense, eyes sharp, focused on something the family couldn't see anymore. Something that wasn't the puppy. Something that wasn't the drone. Something that had moved too naturally. Her father whispered, unsettled, "Max, what did you see?" Max didn't answer, of course. He just stood guard, watching the hallway, as if the real story wasn't over yet. The hallway stayed quiet for a long moment, and everyone could feel the tension slowly fading, like the house itself was taking a breath. Max finally lowered his tail, but he didn't completely relax until her father came down from the attic and stood beside him. Mila kept holding the tiny puppy close to her chest, gently rubbing its head as if she could feel its fear. Her mother let out a soft sigh, the kind that comes after a long stretch of uncertainty, and finally managed a tired smile. Her father walked toward the hallway and turned the lights on one switch at a time, making sure nothing was out of place. Every room looked normal. No shadows moving, no sounds from the attic, no strange shapes hiding in corners. It was just their home again, quiet, warm, and full of the kind of calm they didn't realize they missed until it returned. The only thing that seemed out of the ordinary now was the puppy, who was curled up in Mila's arms like it had finally found the safest place in the world. Her father knelt down in front of Mila, studying the puppy's tiny paws and soft, uneven breathing. He must have been scared. Maybe he got separated from his mother, he said gently. But how did he get inside the house? Mila pointed toward the back door, where the wind had been lightly rustling the curtain. Her mother walked over and noticed the latch wasn't fully closed. It must have happened earlier when they brought groceries in or when Max had been playing outside. Her mother nodded softly. He probably slipped in looking for warmth. The explanation was simple, but it made sense. Not everything needed a dramatic cause, sometimes even the biggest scares came from the smallest, most harmless things. And now, seeing the puppy safe in Mila's arms, the tension they had felt earlier began to transform into something else entirely, compassion. Max walked over and sniffed the puppy again, gentler this time, as if confirming the little one was truly okay. The puppy responded with a tiny wag of its tail, the first sign of trust it had shown. Mila giggled softly, and just like that, the entire atmosphere of the night shifted. Her father picked up the broken drone from the kitchen counter. "I'll return this to Lucas next door tomorrow," he said, examining the sticker again. "He told me he lost one last week. This must be it." Her mother shook her head with a tired laugh. "So we were terrified because of a puppy and a drone?" Her father smiled. "And a light that needs changing," he said, pointing to the flickering bulb. Mila clutched the puppy close. But Max knew. He knew something was wrong. She looked at Max with admiration glowing in her eyes. "He protected us." Her parents nodded. They knew she was right. Max had stayed vigilant, even when they were confused or unsure. His instincts had guided them through the whole night, and now that everything was clear, they could finally appreciate what he had done. Her father placed a gentle hand on Max's head. "Good boy," he said softly, and Max leaned into the touch, closing his eyes for just a second. With things calming down, Mila's mother pulled out a soft blanket and laid it on the couch. She motioned for Mila to set the puppy down so it could rest. After hesitating for a moment, Mila gently lowered the puppy onto the blanket. It curled up instantly, tucking its tiny paws under its body and letting out a soft sigh that sounded like relief. Mila sat beside the puppy, her legs dangling off the couch. Max hopped up next to her, keeping one protective paw near the blanket. Even now, he wasn't fully ready to stop watching over the little one. Her mother smiled at the sight. "Mila, we should find out if anyone around here is missing a puppy. Maybe he has an owner who's looking for him." Mila looked torn. She ran her fingers through the puppy's fur, reluctant to let go. "Can't we keep him?" she asked quietly. "Just for a little while?" Her mother sat down beside her. "Let's see what we can find out first. It's the right thing to do." Mila nodded, even though she clearly wished for a different answer. The night finally settled after that. Her father fixed the flickering light, placed the drone on the table, and locked every door properly. Max stayed curled on the couch next to Mila, keeping a close eye on the puppy as if he had accepted it into the family instantly. The house felt warm again, peaceful in a way that made the earlier fear feel far away. By morning, everything looked different. The sunlight made the living room glow softly, and the puppy woke up stretching its tiny legs. Max leaned in and nudged its head gently, almost like a big brother encouraging it to start the day. After breakfast, her father walked around the neighborhood asking if anyone was missing a puppy. Some people hadn't heard anything, some offered to help if needed. When he knocked on Lucas's door to return the drone, the boy apologized for the trouble and promised to fly drones farther from homes next time. But no one claimed the puppy. When her father returned home, Mila ran to him the moment she saw his empty hands. "No one?" she asked, hope flickering in her eyes. He shook his head. "No one." Her mother knelt beside her. "We'll keep looking for the next few days. But until then, he can stay with us." Mila hugged her mother tightly, then threw her arms around Max and the puppy together. Max let out a soft bark of approval. The next few days were full of small moments that stitched themselves into the family's routine. Mila helped feed the puppy, her parents checked with nearby shelters and community pages, but no leads came up. Meanwhile, Max took on the role of guardian without question, guiding the puppy around the house, keeping it safe during play, and even sleeping beside its little bed at night. One evening, as Mila sat on the floor watching Max and the puppy tumble gently around each other, her father sat beside her. "You know," he said softly, "sometimes life surprises us. We think something is a threat, when really it's something we were meant to help." Mila leaned against him, thinking about the night everything had happened, the fear, the confusion, the shadows that seemed alive at the time. Her father continued, "That's why it's important to stay calm, trust the ones who protect us, and keep our hearts open." Mila nodded thoughtfully, watching Max let the puppy climb onto his back. "Max wasn't scared," she said. "He just wanted to make sure we were okay." Her father smiled. "That's what makes him special." A week later, when no one came forward to claim the puppy, her parents sat Mila down and told her the decision she had been hoping for. "If no one is looking for him," her mother said, "then maybe he was meant to find us." Mila's face lit up brighter than the morning sun. She jumped up, hugged Max first, then scooped up the puppy in her arms, laughing with pure joy. Max barked once, as if giving his approval to the newest member of the family. That night, as Mila lay in bed with Max on one side and the puppy tucked into its little basket nearby, she whispered, "Thank you, Max. You knew what we didn't." Max shifted slightly, resting his head beside her hand. His eyes sparkled with the quiet wisdom only a loyal golden retriever could have. And from that night on, Mila never forgot the important lesson hidden inside that strange evening, that not every unexpected noise means danger, and not every shadow hides something scary. Sometimes, it hides something, or someone, who just needs a safe place, a warm home.